Hi, it's Charlie from feedingourflamingos.com. Today I've got a freezer breakfast meal prep for you. I'm making 4 recipes. I've got recipes already printed out. I cleaned the kitchen. I cleared off the table. My goal is to have everything done in just 2 hours. We'll see how that goes. Last time I did a freezer breakfast meal prep session, it took me about 3.5 hours hands-on time, not including all the cleaning up in between and taking things in and out of the oven and packaging everything up. So hopefully it's just 2 hours that I can just breeze right through. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna get everything out and put it on the table. And then I'm gonna start with the sweet potato waffles. So here's the recipes printed out. I've got the granola, sweet potato waffles, crepes, and maple cinnamon oatmeal.
I often find that the easiest way to get a meal prep session going is just to get everything out on the table that I need. So I put everything on the table, and you'll see that I even have the butter out and the eggs. Since we have our own laying hens in our backyard, those are all our chicken eggs, and we don't usually refrigerate them anyways. That is powdered milk. I've got plenty of powdered milk, and I don't really buy milk anymore from the store, so I just use that when I need milk in a recipe. My goal was to get going right around 9 or 9:30 in the morning, but I didn't actually start cooking until past 11, as you can see. The very first thing I got going was the sweet potatoes in the oven for the sweet potato waffles. When I roast sweet potatoes, I make several deep cuts on both sides to make it easier to cook the insides and the outsides at the same time. The next thing I got started on was the crepes. I added all the ingredients to the blender except the milk, because I realized that after doubling the recipe, I didn't have enough room in the blender. I was actually able to add a little bit of milk, but not very much. And once all of that was blended, I poured it into a big bowl, and I added the milk and just whisked it together in that big bowl. And then I put it into the fridge to chill until I was ready to use it. Next up, after the crepes got into the fridge, was mixing up the granola. At that point, it was around 11:50 a.m., so I'd already been working for a good 40 minutes. And believe it or not, mixing up the granola took me about 25 minutes, which is kind of crazy. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about actually the motion of mixing the granola. I'm talking about adding the ingredients to the bowl. It took me that long. So once I had the granola all mixed, I put it on a sheet pan, and I was able to take the baked sweet potatoes out of the oven at that point. I put the granola into the oven for about 25 minutes to start, and then I would get it out and stir it up, put it back in for another 20 minutes, and just keep doing that until it was crispy enough for my liking. I had enough granola to do 2 batches. Once one batch was done, I would just scoop it into a big container and add the next batch, and do the same process with putting it in the oven and then stirring it every 20 minutes or so. I started making the oatmeal right after
I put the granola in the oven, and when the oatmeal was on the stove, we ate lunch. Once the oatmeal was cooked, I put the oatmeal in a silicone muffin pan, and then I put it in the freezer to harden so that I could pop the little cubes out and put them in freezer bags. We had some oatmeal left over, so I just put it in a jar and we ate it for breakfast the next morning. When you freeze liquids in the muffin pans, you need to put them on a baking sheet. Put them on in a flat spot in your freezers so they don't spill.
At this point, it was around 2 o'clock, and I decided I better clean up. So I had quite a mess going on in my kitchen. I didn't have one on my table, which was nice. And this is what it looked like after I cleaned up some. Now it was about 2:30, so I spent 30 minutes cleaning up, and I finally was able to get the sweet potato skins off the sweet potatoes and start making the waffles. I used a small little bitty waffle maker that one of my daughters got from a yard sale. We have a bigger one, but I just decided to make little ones for my kids, and it worked fine. I shouldn't have used that dumb spoon. I only used it for that very first waffle. After that, I used a measuring cup to just scoop and pour. As you can see, it was a little bit hard for me to get the waffles out of the waffle maker while I was holding the camera. If I hadn't been holding the camera, it would have been a little bit easier. I could have put my finger on the waffle while I used the fork to get it out, and it would have been a lot easier. Finally, at 3:25 p.m., which was well over 4 hours after I got started, I started the crepes. They were not all this finicky to get out of the pan, but some of them were quite annoying. And I had to use both hands to flip them over, so my daughter filmed this part. If I hadn't chosen sweet potato waffles and crepes as part of this breakfast meal prep session, I probably could have completed it much faster. Like, muffins are so much faster than crepes because you pour them into a muffin tin and you put them in the oven and they all bake at once. And you don't have to do any flipping, and they're not individual. I finished with the waffles at 4:50 p.m. I still had a lot of crepes left to cook. As you can see, that bowl still had a lot of batter left, but I was seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. Here's my last crepe. Finally, around 6:05 p.m. in the evening. Many, many, many hours after I started. So we ate dinner, and then I finally got to package everything up and put it away. But even though I spent all that time, over 6 hours, cooking all day, I felt good. Like, I had accomplished a lot, and there was a lot of food to put in my freezer. and it's very helpful on busy mornings when I just don't feel like cooking or I don't have time to cook. My kitchen was still a little messy. I still had some cleanup, but it was not nearly as bad because I had spent time throughout the meal prep session cleaning up a bit. I know that my future self will thank me profusely for all the hard work that I did on that day. For more details on what we do with all this food, how we serve it, what we eat it with, and the recipes and everything, go to the description below. I have a blog post written with all the details. Thank you for stopping by my channel, and I will see you later.